Wait, okay, yeah. Here we go. Heidi Moneymaker.
What?
Heidi Moneymaker is kicking everybody's butt.
The true hero of Iron Man 2.
She makes the money.
Hello and welcome to the 122nd episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined by my brother Rob.
Disturb.
Fresh from carrying ancient televisions upstairs.
From freighting a TV from the 1800s.
Yeah, some sort of Atari-era television you described it as.
I don't know. I think the garbage people have neglected it once before, but I may do a Craigslist curb alert.
Yeah.
You can turn it into a fishbowl, because I'm too lazy to try.
Yeah. You know, in true Madagascar fashion, you like to move it, let's say.
I like to groove it.
This isn't because your apartment burned down.
No, this is the standard end of the lease. This happens quite frequently on the show. I think it's like a
I know,
theme.
that's the only reason I thought to mention it at all. Because nobody cares about this. But with your last place burning down, it was like, is there some special reason you're on the run this time?
Right.
Or is that, nah.
No, nothing like that.
All right, so since that's not interesting, why don't we move into something that is interesting, which is the geekiness we digested this week.
The digestivo of the week.
Yes.
This week, I've concluded that Gamefly sucks.
In news.
In news.
This is weird. You're confirming my suspicion, but I don't hear people say this like as much as I think they should.
Oh, man. Well,
and to be fair, in terms of new releases, right, is what you're really saying.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the thing is, like, this is definitely something that Gamefly will not do for you, is you cannot use them to get new releases on day one or even relatively around there.
Even if your flavor is Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper.
Exactly.
As mentioned last week, yeah.
I got confirmed, like, I just received it in the mail today. Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper. It's by the Adventure Company, so I have a little bit of like, this might be interesting.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me about that, because I am genuinely interested in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue that it was even coming out, you know?
Yeah, and so this gives you an idea. That game came out on your birthday.
Right.
Last month, and it took until now to get here. And
right.
This is another point that's kind of crap, is the queue system.
Sure.
With Netflix, it's kind of cool because it's, you watch something, you're only committed for maybe 2 hours, and you send it back,
Right.
But with video games, it's like, do you really want to be like, well, I don't know which game out of my queue they're going to send me, like...
Yeah,
and there's no
power
of refusal. I wish it could say, we'll send you this if like this is not available. If you want to wait, we can send you that, and
right.
or we'll just send you that now. So you're constantly opening and closing windows of time where something that you want could actually arrive.
I've had to be pretty anal about Netflix queues in the past when I did want that like day and date release. But they've delivered pretty well. I mean, if you switch to Blu-ray, it's a little bit longer wait. But for DVDs, I got a lot of movies on the actual day of release.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole queue management thing where you're like sitting there babysitting it.
When it comes down to it, I mean, Gamefly is a service that's great for video game enthusiasts.
For back catalog stuff, I think it makes total sense.
Honestly, like, okay, if it's a month or two old,
right,
you should be able to get it. Like, if there's stuff that's like, all right, Metro 2033, for example, I have now. It's not a very popular game, but it's interesting, and I wanted to check it out. So, by that respect, it worked. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, so I just want to try this thing out. There's a lot less of a hurdle to ordering it because you've already paid for your month.
Yeah. But what about the thing where you're like playing it for a month? You know what I mean? Like suddenly you're $18 a month or whatever. It might as well have been to purchase it used. I don't know. It's like you're going to watch a movie one time and send it back, but you may play a game for like Fallout 3 I never played, so I would love to use something like that to get it, but then am I paying like $30 to rent it,
Exactly. And then after a certain point, though, you can click, keep it.
Sure.
And then you end up paying kind of a reduced price It's usually like $45 or something.
Your hatred of Gamefly has turned into an ad for Gamefly here at the end, where it's like, but you can click buy.
Well, okay, so it's not bad. I just don't think I'm going to keep it. Like
Fair enough.
I don't play games willy-nilly. It's too much time to spend. It's too much commitment to just have, what's this random game?
Sure.
I have games I've bought that I still have not opened.
And that's a shame, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're definitely, renting games I think is still a great option. That just may be a kind of a faulty way to play new ones.
Yeah. It doesn't compete with renting because it's $10 to rent a game at Blockbuster, I think, like brand new.
Right.
And it's $20 a month for this. So unless you're renting like 3 games a month from Blockbuster or something, it's not going to pay. And now some people that's fine, they do that, but for me it's just not justified.
Yeah, and Blockbuster has a competitive service too, where you can get like on a Game Pass or something and pay X amount a month.
Yeah, they have that.
Yeah, but speaking of video games, I actually this week got to play Zeno Clash finally. Wow. On Xbox Live. We mentioned before this game was delayed. It was supposed to come out last month, finally came out this month, and it's an older game. It's a PC game, came out on Steam, I want to say last year sometime, and got a lot of buzz just for its art style. I don't think you had a chance to play this week, did you?
Unfortunately, no. I managed to download it.
Right. But have you sort of seen the visuals of this game, kind of what I'm talking about?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have the wiki loaded right now. But yeah, I've taken a look at this game. It's always been this kind of amazing standard for art.
Yeah, it's sort of like being inside the Dark Crystal, or sort of like a high fantasy. Geez, I don't even know what that means, but like just a very ornate fantasy world that feels much more well designed than it should be for such a small team. And it is a small team. I believe it's a Belgian team, but yeah, it's only $15, and it's sort of marketed as like a budget game, but it has the aesthetic of like I would almost say better than a lot of big budget games, especially because most of the characters you meet are entirely unique. Not just different clothing, but like entirely different races. Like you'll fight, and it is generally a fighting game, first-person puncher, if you will. There is some shooting as well. But you'll fight, 3 different people. None of them will look anything like each other. The one that has a giant head, etc. I described a little bit of this in my sort of early impressions of this game before on this show. But actually playing it, I'm most of the way through. And I have to say that the art style really is the best thing. The gameplay kind of surprised me because it is largely these arenas that you enter where it sort of throws up a fight, kind of a situation, and you have to attack these 3 people, And
it is a first-person fighder.
Correct.
That's pretty unique.
It is unique, and it's something like I really enjoyed Condemned 2. That was my game of the year a couple years ago, and this doesn't quite have that same physics, this sort of raw feeling when you're punching them. It feels a little bit weird on the the animations and stuff. But it does have a pretty deep fighting system. You can dodge, and if you block, it'll make the opponent stumble back, and you can throw a kick in then, There's a lot of stuff you can do, but you must stay on your toes to beat these fights. They're actually really challenging.
Ooh.
And the good news is you can run quickly with the right bumper. You can just sort of blast through these levels. Frame rate's great. The port is very good, so you're not losing out there. And that's the interesting thing is I wish there was a better way to interact with this world, because I was really fascinated by the world. It's weird. I mean, to be totally honest, like at some points it's too weird. It's got like the alternate swearing that for some reason every like fantasy or sci-fi has to try to do, where they say, "This is really cackin' strange," and and it's like, oh, come on. Yeah, I know. It's like chits,
Ew.
Alternate money system, But for those who aren't familiar, you play as this character, Gat, Ghat, and you've killed basically the god of the world, whose name is Father Mother, and this very freaky bird-like creature with these bird-like feet and these orbs, glowing eyes, with a hood over him, with this like merged male-female voice, very freaky. And you're on the run from your brothers and sisters, basically, because father-mother is your father-mother, apparently.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. I mean, that's a great way to describe this game. But,
weirdness ensues.
But part of that weirdness is cool to me because it isn't like any other game. Nothing is assumed. No architecture, no character. It's all just sort of, what can we come up with next? And some of that stuff fails. But a lot of it, I think, is just really cool to look at. And traveling around the world, I wished that I could almost be in an RPG of this instead of just a fighting game of this. Like you'll see tables and chairs and houses and stuff, and I almost wish that I could go and run little escort missions, or God, not those, but
you pick the worst possible I wish I could really grind for 40 hours trying to level up,
picking snag route or whatever.
Exactly.
No, but I wish that there was a deeper. And granted, it's a small $15 game. Sometimes those cracks show through, in just the depth here, because it is at the end of the day strictly punching dudes and shooting dudes. But there's some really cool things here. So I would recommend checking this game out if you're a fan of creativity and you want to see something besides the same old, especially in your first-person type of games.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I mean, it definitely sounds cool. I definitely want to give it a try. It's a 1.5 gigabyte demo.
Yeah, which is the whole game.
Really?
After you play the demo, if you unlock the game with the 1,200 points or whatever it is, it instantly kicks you into the game. I mean, there's no extra.
Sweet.
Yeah, which I always loved.
Well, that's good.
And it even continues your progress. Something that Castle Crashers did is, as soon as we played one level, we're like, well, we must buy this, and it just continued on. Instead of making you replay the way some do.
It's almost like they need to just have it be like, here's a door and it costs 50 chits to open this door.
Yeah, 50 cacking chits.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Facebook is doing that too, by the way.
Yeah,
this is kind of, I don't want to go on a tangent, but microtransactions and corporate-owned currencies,
right.
The Microsoft points, the Nintendo points, and now Facebook has its own Facebook coin.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what exactly it's called, but it's just it's like, oh yeah, you can buy this thing in Farmville. It'll just cost you, 50 Facebook bucks, which is,
alternate civilization.
You can only buy it in packs of 2000s. It's like, oh, $30, and
yeah,
it's so. It's weird because in one way it's like, all right, it's actually maturing as a game platform. In another way, I just want Facebook out of my business.
Get out of my business. If I may follow up that weird recommendation with one more weird one from this week.
Okay.
I read a comic book called The Sixth Gun. It's a free comic. It's actually available online for free at Oni Press's website, which is just oni.com, I believe. Or onipress.com, excuse me. And this was the free comic day thing. If you remember, we talked about that story last week. This comic was one of the ones they gave away. And The Sixth Gun is really weird in the best possible way. It reminded me of The Umbrella Academy, in just the amount of crazy crap that it throws at you, It's a Western horror, if I could put it that way. But it covers so much crazy ground in this first issue between, one of my favorite scenes, this guy goes to a tree full of people hanging by their necks and just starts talking to them and asking them how to find the sixth gun, which is this thing he's on the lookout for. Really, really well written, great dialogue, great characters, just in this first issue. And the people in the tree start answering him, you must bring us the map and stuff. If you like that kind of weirdness, horror / Western environment, definitely check this out. Remember in Moulin Rouge how there was that one shot of a midget lady dancing in a snake cage?
Ew.
And then it just cuts away? Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that this comic is what was that? And you only see it for a second and then it moves on.
Wait, how does that work in a comic? Don't you see it and you can look at it for a while?
Yeah, I suppose it does. But
maybe is it like how Watchmen had the squid thing and you're like, what is this? And it's not until the very end that you realize.
Yeah, and Wes Anderson does this too, where it's just a smorgasbord of crazy stuff, and then he cuts away. This comic does that, and it keeps the ideas flowing, and I loved that. So, The Sixth Gun, check that out online, onipress.com.
Cool. Recommendations out the wazoo today.
Yes.
Yes. But that's not what we're here for.
Well, it sort of is. Why'd you say that? Why'd you say that, man?
It's kind of like the normal thing to say when you're moving on.
No, but it is what we're here for.
It is. That's what we're here for.
You actually saw Iron Man this week.
Iron Man 2.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Iron Man 2, yes.
I saw Iron Man a while ago. You might recall we did a show.
We did. If you go back to our From Philadelphia episode, you'll hear our crazy late-night in-a-car review of Iron Man.
Yes.
Which we all liked. But before we get to our sort of main topic about Iron Man 2, this trailer premiered before Iron Man 2.
Yeah, there is a trailer. It's one reason to go see Iron Man 2, you know. It's J.J. Abrams
right,
and Steven Spielberg
right,
working on this new movie called Super 8. It's very much a Cloverfield-y-esque. J.J. Abrams, in true fashion, just doesn't give anything away but mystery.
Right, so describe what you do see in here. It doesn't have anything to do with Cloverfield. It's not Cloverfield 2.
So we think.
Well, he's said that.
Okay.
And the Roswell
so that's
situation definitely kind of gives that away.
Right.
I think.
This train is en route from Area 51 transporting something elsewhere.
Right.
We then see a pickup truck
right.
veer off the road, like very kind of angrily, and drive directly into this train, causing it to derail and crash. And then it zooms up onto one of the carriages, and you just hear like this monster noise coming from inside. It starts to pound at the door.
Right.
And then oddly enough, also like all of the metallic objects start to fly up or like react, or like the wheel is spinning. So like there's maybe some sort of magnetic thing going on here.
Yeah.
But and then obviously like you don't get to see what it is inside there.
Yeah, it's sort of starting to pound against this metallic door that says U.S. Air Force.
Right.
We assume it's an alien.
Yeah.
Of some kind, but that seems pretty cliche, and J.J. Abrams is known for sort of changing the game up a little bit. I wonder, a Super 8 camera is a camera they had in the 60s,
Yeah.
I wonder if this is going to be a handheld, Super 8 version of alien situations in the 60s. I'm not sure.
Like Cloverfield.
Like Cloverfield, only with an even older technology.
See, that's why like everybody's like it's Cloverfield 2. I mean, even if it's not exactly, it's the spiritual successor.
Sure.
If
that is the reason it's called Super 8, which is hard, not to think that it is.
The funny thing was whenever I saw that title, I was instantly thinking of, hey, Splag, shiggity shiggity schwa.
Yeah.
I got the new Super 8 system.
Super 88, yeah. The Group X movie. Yeah.
Nintendo 8, like it's just the 8-bit.
But maybe it is about that. It's a Super 88 system has escaped.
Maybe it is. It's like pixel monsters like attacking people.
That actually has not been done.
It's the Doom rendition of hell that we would all be afraid to actually go to.
Yeah.
Like,
with the Caco demon. Yeah. Yeah. But so there at the very end of this trailer, there's sort of this shot where it pulls out of this lens. Another reason to assume it's a camera, I guess. And flashes a whole bunch of crap by real quick inside the lens and then sort of ends. And if you slow that down, and what I love is people like Abrams who know that the internet will do this,
Right. If you slow it down.
If you slow it down, it directs you to a website called thescariestthingeversaw.com, I believe. And there is a computer program there. Have you gone to it?
Nope.
Okay. So
describe this for me.
You pull up this sort of like DOS-style menu, and it's directing you through these different yes and no prompts. And people say that it's a countdown to the movie. But in addition to that, I really love this. You can click print on the screen, and it will print to your printer a piece of paper that says, "Why are you contacting me in public? I told you, I need to tell you this privately," or some such thing.
Cool.
That's cool to me, like that kind of alternate reality stuff.
It's an ARG,
of course,
alternate reality game.
Yeah. By the way, every time I hear ARG, there's no explanation for it. This podcast will not do that to you, gentle listener. We're going to at least explain. I don't think ARG is
messages.
Yeah, exactly. Is ARG so common that we don't have to explain what it means anymore? I don't know. Maybe it is.
I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. And is it
I don't think
so
it is.
like arduous to just say, "Oh, alternate reality game" or alternate reality advertisement?
Right. Basically, it's viral marketing,
exactly.
etc.
I've often had this kind of pose about J.J. Abrams films and movies, and particularly Lost, which is I don't like speculation. I don't like it. I like to just let the flower unfold in front of me and just, look at it, like bloom, and just have your mind blown.
Yeah, he feels that way too, surprisingly.
Maybe you and I've often wanted to do this with something, is just, we'll write down right now what we think it is and seal them in envelopes.
Yeah, we did this with Star Wars Episode 2, I think.
I don't even know that we did.
I remember putting something in an envelope that said, like, answers to all these questions. Who is Count Dooku? What is Boba Fett? All this stuff.
Right. Oh, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a new superhero movie.
So we're at the end of this conversation is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's cool that J.J. Abrams feels the way you do. He actually likes when people have mystery still. And for the record, I actually really liked Cloverfield. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I did too.
When people say, if you watch the end of that film and look in the background on the Ferris wheel, you can see something falling from the sky that reveals more about the alien visit, and I'm like, ooh, let me see that. I really like that stuff. And I like that he likes that stuff. So
yeah, he's like writing the book on all these tactics. Like in the internet age, you're right. Like he's about sort of the meta movie that's being shown.
Yeah. Next week, the finale of Lost will be on, and I don't envy people in a position of writing something that the entire world is theorizing about on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I won't be watching it because I haven't caught up.
Sure.
It's sad. But there's other stuff.
Yeah, there is other stuff.
So one of those other things is Iron Man 2.
Yeah, Iron Man 2. I'm going to let you take the reins on this since I actually did not get a chance to see this, sadly.
All right.
But I do have some questions. So off the bat, summarize the story here because I'm not sure what it's about.
Okay. Iron Man 2 is about making a sequel to a successful comic book movie franchise in typical fashion.
Are you tipping your hand a little bit for your review?
Exactly. I don't know. What's this about? Basically, Tony Stark goes public with the technology, with this stuff. Now, the government wants him to turn over that technology. As a matter of fact, basically everybody now wants the technology for the suit. And he's saying, no, you can't have it. It's mine. If it gets in somebody else's hands, then it becomes a liability. Then it becomes a real problem. As long as I have it, you're safe. Don't worry, And so a lot of this movie revolves around other people developing or trying to develop the arc reactor technology.
Okay.
And we have Mickey Rourke appear. And he is the son of a man who used to work for Stark Industries. Mm-hmm. So he has the blueprints for the arc reactor, and he creates his own kind of rendition of it.
So the blueprints were just floating around Stark Industries, I guess?
Yes, you have to buy this because there has to be a sequel to make money.
Yeah, I have to say going in that I did not want a sequel to Iron Man 2.
You didn't want a sequel to Iron Man.
I didn't need a sequel. I shouldn't be so harsh. I didn't need a sequel. I loved Iron Man.
Okay.
And I especially loved the last line in there, and the fact that he is a public superhero. Everyone knows it's Tony Stark.
And probably that's one of the enjoyable parts about this movie is that kind of relationship that he has with the public.
Right.
He really is this narcissistic, like megalomaniac kind of guy who really is just all about himself. Mm-hmm. And there's some hilarious lines and hilarious moments. Robert Downey Jr. is definitely
can do no wrong.
As with Iron Man 1, one of the main reasons to see this movie.
Right.
Unfortunately, the story is not so much. Like, I even struggle to really say what this story is about beyond just throwing more characters on the screen.
Yeah.
Kind of like, getting War Machine on there.
We'll get to that because he's like one of your absolute favorite.
Well, okay, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, as a list of guys, War Machine, Whiplash, Shield makes a return. So Nick Fury. Whatever Scarlett Johansson is.
Well, I was about to ask about that before we got to War Machine. Like, what the heck's the Scarlett Johansson situation? Like you said.
What the heck indeed, sir.
Okay.
It almost ruined the movie for me. I'm just watching it, and it's uncomfortable at first because they're trying to insinuate some sort of love triangle or something, and it's not, and it shouldn't be. And so her character is very undefined as to what she's supposed to be beyond just being eye candy. You know, like it's...
Sadly, that's generally Scarlett Johansson. And I mean, I think she's an okay actress. She's been in some decent things like The Prestige, you know.
Right.
But when you see like Vicky Cristina Barcelona and you see her, you're like, oh, she's, you know, serviceable actress. And then Penelope Cruz shows up, you're like, oh my God, the night and day, you know, between these two people, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
and heck, Downey Jr. I mean,
right. That Gwyneth Paltrow is doing a great job. Like the back and forth between Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow is great. And then Scarlett Johansson just kind of walks in there, speaking kind of out of the side of her puffed up face, and just like, "Oh, I think you should do whatever you want to whoever you want." And they're just like, "What?
Get out of here!"
What does that?
Like,
what does that even mean for your character? Like,
but then I also see her like flip kicking dudes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wait a minute.
Which leads to the classic interview line: "Just so you know, my character also won't take no guff from anyone."
Yeah. Sure.
Just once, I like to have somebody say, "My character is deeply abused the entire movie." You know.
Gosh, I really need to find out the name of the stunt double who did her. Well, action was hilarious.
Okay, speaking of freeze framing trailers, a lot of people put up shots of the clearly visible face of the stunt double.
But yeah, just like that whole sequence, like you're watching this scene play out of just her beating up a bunch of guys with like these flip kicks and stuff. And it's just like, okay, this is a different movie.
this meanwhile in movie C.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about War Machine.
Yes.
Because that's somebody that you really liked, I remember as a kid, the comics, the character, and kind of controversial because the casting was switched from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
Making the internet kind of upset.
I fully agree with the internet. And on this rare occasion, I took my girlfriend to this movie, in part promising her some Terrence Howard. Because she actually likes him as an actor, and Robert Downey Jr. obviously, but like both are like these, you know, very predominant actors, have their style and things like that.
And for the audience, there's a scene in Iron Man where Terrence Howard points at the Iron Man suit and says, "Next time, baby."
Yeah.
And no, there isn't.
Do we know why Terrence Howard turned this down?
No, he didn't turn this down. He was ousted. That's why everybody was so mad.
What?
Is they chose Don Cheadle instead of him. It wasn't his decision. He would have done it. Who isn't going to do Iron Man 2?
I mean, I would have done it. I would have definitely been.
Just paint me. I'll do it.
Exactly. I'll be War Machine. Come on.
Yeah. Well, in the trailer, I have to say, Don Cheadle's sort of bulgy eyes and stuff made him look a little weird in the suit.
Yeah.
Like thin, very thin actor. Doesn't fill it out as much maybe as Terrence Howard.
Yeah, he seemed like a little nerdy. Like Terrence Howard has this very like angular, like he looks like you just put some armor on the guy and he'll be ready to go. Wrap him in tinfoil, he'll look like, you know, War Machine. Yeah. But oh gosh, they handle it so poorly. They really do. I think first of all, the sense memory isn't there for you. You don't realize that that's the same character right away.
Right.
You know, they can say his name, they can say whatever, but in the end, he's a distinctly different looking person, distinctly different acting. It doesn't make sense to you. And so when he just kind of goes and puts on the suit, it wasn't like there was a build up to that. You know, you didn't feel it transition from the first movie over to the second where it's like, finally, release, he gets to wear the suit. Instead, he just seems like this punk who grabs the suit and runs off with it. There's this kind of like moment where like everybody's looking at him in awe as he's in the suit, and you're just going like, "What? Like, this isn't impressive. This is just like, yeah, I snagged one."
It seems like a minor thing, but you're saying it really did like disconnect you from the film, I guess.
It did. Like I didn't care about him. I wasn't like, oh man, this character who had so much development in the first movie is now, you know, joining forces with Iron Man. And
well, how about when his mask covers his face? Is it better then?
It's like, what if we just remove the actor from the film?
Okay, let's just say, what did you like about Iron Man 2?
It was ultimately a fun movie.
Right.
Like it's up there as like a summer movie. Robert Downey Jr., great. The writing revolving around him was definitely on key with playing to his character. Some really good stuff in there. Some laugh out loud moments. The technology, everybody is just lusting after his computer, which isn't even just a computer. It's like it's a holographic room that you can like hold an item in the room and just be like, scan this item, and it's scanned, and now there's a virtual version of it. It's like what Microsoft Surface does, but in 3D.
Yeah, and Sam Rockwell is this competing...
Sam Rockwell, yeah, he plays Justin Hammer,
right?
Who is from Iron Man lore.
Sure.
I was happy to discover that because they were playing him up like this villain, and it makes sense when you're like, okay, so he is a villain. He really is supposed to be a bad guy.
Does he have like lust-worthy technology as well? Because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the sort of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, back and forth between these two.
Well, that's more or less, I think, where they were trying to derive the style of the characters from. Like, they both give these presentations at points in the movies.
Right.
And I really think, like, they were trying to pull a, give it up for me kind of moment
sure.
with him. Like, just a guy who's not at all fun to listen to talk, trying to be hip.
Yeah.
Whereas, Tony Stark actually is hip and can just, talk, and everybody loves to hear him talk.
What about Mickey Rourke as this villain? I mean, did you didn't mention him as a bad thing?
He is just an empty-headed gun.
Okay.
He's very much Mickey Rourke. Let's just say that. Like, if you're expecting any more from Mickey Rourke than Mickey Rourke, you're going to be disappointed. This isn't the greatest performance since The Wrestler. I think he has like 2 lines in the entire movie.
Jeez.
I mean, he really doesn't talk much. When he does, it's Russian, and he's trying to like play this Russian guy.
So he's eye candy in a different way, essentially.
Yeah, he's a bad guy in sort of the Darth Maul sense.
Okay.
Like he's a imposing villain. He's the muscle between kind of the Hammer Whiplash relationship.
It seemed a little silly to me in the trailer. Does it?
Yeah,
is
and
it
it really is like because
Okay.
you're like, how? I mean, I can already see how this guy is going to fail against Iron Man.
Sure.
You
mean the fact that he can't fly, for one? I don't know.
Right. Or that he has any kind of shielding of any kind.
Yeah, his bare chest is exposed.
He doesn't feel as threatening as I think they want him to.
Yeah.
And it's more the fact that he has the technology that's scary, other than, like him himself being imposing. It's like, oh, now the technology is out there, it could fall into the wrong hands. Apparently, he's not wrong enough, like, to be...
Not his hands, but someone's hands. Just imagine.
Somebody could get a hold of this.
Yeah.
And on that note, I'm not sure who should have it. Like, who is the villain for Iron Man?
Right.
The only one that could come to mind, I was thinking, like, for Iron Man 3 or whatever, is maybe Ultron.
Yeah.
But still, like, it's not, the Joker. It's not Doctor Doom. It's not any of the big villains. And I think this movie lacks villainry. It lacks a lot of that kind of
I thought even the first movie had a little bit of difficulty in the villain department. And obviously the audience, when it comes to Iron Man, isn't going to necessarily have the connection like they do with the Joker. Like his villains are not as well known. I know that Favreau wants Mandarin potentially for the third one. I don't know anything about that. So it's the kind of thing where
it's like, who is this? But I will say this, I am getting sick of just the suits, Okay. It's just it's essentially a mech movie,
right.
But not like a cool one. It's just, oh, I have a suit now too. Well, I have a suit. Well, I have a bigger suit.
Well, the first movie focused a lot on his character and his origin before he ever even had the suit. Would you say this has more? Is there more just CG?
You know what? Oddly enough, like really, there's not too many battle scenes. Like I can count like 2 or 3. But one just leads into the other, so it's really not even like
right.
I'll say this, for as down as I've been on the movie, in the end, I did enjoy it. Like, when I got out, I was like, yeah, I like that. Like, it didn't, like, suck, But it wasn't, like, it could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe save it for a rental. But, again, it's one of those movies that's like, all right, unless you're going to be watching it on something with some punch, it'll probably be lost on you. So it's worth going out for a weekend and seeing. Don't waste your money on seeing it in IMAX or anything, but just have fun. It's a fun movie, and Robert Downey Jr. is Robert Downey Jr. He does a great job. I really wish Terrence Howard was in this movie, and I really wish Scarlett Johansson was out of this movie.
Gotcha.
Okay, but one more thing.
Oh.
After the movie, after the credits roll, there is a teaser, and it's really cool. And if you don't want it spoiled, just mute your microphone for the next minute and a half.
Okay.
A guy drives up in a car. He's a SHIELD associate in New Mexico, and you see this big crater in the ground with like these science teams around it. Right. And he picks up the phone and he goes, "Sir, it's me." It's like, "We found it." And then it pans down to the center of the crater, and there you see Thor's hammer stuck in the ground. Yeah.
That gives me a little tingle right there.
I know. Yeah. You're like,
And the shots of Chris Hemsworth as Thor recently came out online. You probably saw them.
Yeah, I did. I saw a shot.
A shot. Yeah, that's all there really was. But I have it on Comic Authority from a Thor reader that I work with. That is good. That is a good thing because they're getting down to the characters that less people know about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it's not as popular. So I was even asking him, like, what is Thor's origin and stuff? Just so that I can feel included whenever it happens. But I don't care who you are. That is still cool if you know the basest thing about comics.
There is concern for me about like that. About these characters now. Thor. Right. And Captain America, they're obviously not going to have like Night Shadow or whatever his name was, like. But yeah, the Avengers. Thor is a Norse god. Like that's not a very convincing backstory.
Well, no, they're going to change the backstory. It sounds like from the old backstory. Because there's been a couple. You know how it goes with comics. There's a couple of different backstories you can choose from. The one dealt with this regular doctor guy who would swap places with Thor. Thor was up in his heavenly palace,
Valhalla.
And then he would, I think it's Asgard, and he would swap bodies with this doctor. When he used this staff, I think it was, he would pound the staff or whatever. And excuse me, Thor fans, for butchering some of this, but I think the story they're going with in the movie is that he's a fallen god. He's been kicked out and he's immortal now, or that he's on Earth. So they're rearranging things, but it's not a story that most people know, so I don't even think it'll matter much to the general audience.
Yeah, but I still like it. It doesn't gel right with the other two, with Hulk and Iron Man being science origin.
Right.
To have...
You have a god.
Yeah, exactly. To have that.
But doesn't it make it kind of awesome? Just in a little way, because it's like, this is Marvel's thing. I mean, you can't tussle with the Avengers. It's a long-time team, and you can't have it without Thor.
We'll see how they handle it. Right now, it's definitely full of skepticism. I really don't know that they can pull that off. I don't know that you can pull off Captain America these days because there's that.
Right.
It's not the same kind of patriotism that there was when you had that character.
Those are the two iffy ones. For the modern audience.
Everybody will buy Ant-Man, no problem.
Sure.
That movie is in the bag.
Yeah, well, it's weird because somebody's mentioned writing the Ant-Man movie, and I was like, are they really doing that? Because, he is technically in the Avengers. I haven't heard a dang thing about Ant-Man or Wasp, his wife, his tiny wife. But anyway, so that's that. I was just curious about what the Avengers teaser that slipped into this one was, since they've all had them.
Well, it's very overt throughout the movie, though, because Sam Jackson shows up as Nick Fury.
Yeah.
And, basically, they're just the whole, half of the movie, Scarlett Johansson's character works for S.H.I.E.L.D., and she's basically observing Iron Man for the Avenger Initiative.
Right.
And, so that's kind of, it's very much in there, this Avengers thing is happening. It's more than just a teaser at the end of the movie now. It's, part of the plot.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. They're definitely setting this up well in advance to get everybody pumped. It's probably the largest foreshadowing ever. You know what I mean? If you go all the way back to the first movie that this happened in, I think it was the first Hulk movie this happened in. Maybe the second one, but whatever. It just I don't think I've ever seen this kind of build up to a single property before. Like this concept is just so enjoyable, where it's like we're gonna have a bunch of movies that are all promoting one movie. Exactly.
And that one movie comes out in 2012 and will end the world.
But the cool thing is that they do have Robert Downey Jr. and Ed Norton. I mean, if you just look at the cast, it's a pretty good cast, you know? Even removing that they are their superhero characters, that's a pretty cool team up just of actors, you know, looking at all the people that are going to be in it. So we'll see, but that's way, way, way out there in terms of news. So that's Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
And before we close out our show, we always like to get nostalgic. This week, our nostalgia section answers the question, if you could own one fantasy vehicle and one real vehicle, what would it be?
Tough question, you know.
It is, but you posed it, so you shall now answer it.
I shall now answer it. Okay. So let's start
by Thor's hammer, I swear, by Odin's beard hairs.
Are we starting with real world vehicle?
Let's start off with the real world vehicle.
Okay. You know, I've always kind of wanted a Dodge Viper.
Okay. Because of Gran Turismo?
Yes, because of Gran Turismo.
Right.
Like, here's the funny thing is, my girlfriend thinks I know stuff about cars.
Yes.
I really don't. I play a lot of video games, and I've played racing games.
Yes.
And I know cars from racing games and how they handle. So I'll be like, oh, man, that Ferrari GT, that's a really good car.
Yeah.
And she's like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I use it to win races in Project Gotham.
Yeah, that's where I remember you saying, oh man, the Mitsubishi Eclipse is so sweet. Because I actually had one on my honeymoon. We rented a car. And I was like, oh, it's an Eclipse. And the first thing I flashed to was Gran Turismo.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but it's true. And so from all of that, I kind of confirmed this idea that the Dodge Viper is like one of the coolest cars and man-made machines in existence. And I don't even know if that's true, but it was... In Gran Turismo it was, and maybe the one thing that really informs that concept to me is that there haven't been many like updates to that design.
It's a good design.
It's a good design, and it's just always been the Dodge Viper.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And it's so rare that there's good American car design. You know what I mean?
Very true.
It's just a bunch of boxes. You know, you friggin' car companies, like every commercial that comes on is like, a new box has been released. It's driving now, and it has wheels. Oh, yeah, it does. Look at them. And it's the most boring crap ever. Cut to any other country, and they're driving like a credit card car or something, you know, that's like, what is that even doing? On that note, the Lamborghini Countach was my real-world vehicle fantasy, especially when I was a kid in the 80s. Like, our cousin had this poster on his wall, Lamborghini Countach. I don't even know if that's how to pronounce it. You know?
It's probably like the worst way to pronounce it.
Right, exactly. But thing was just awesome looking, and I think that they still make Lamborghinis, and I'm sure that they're still well designed. But this is the one with the extreme angle on the front and the gull wing doors and all that. Yeah, and it's just like that is friggin' from the future. Except it's available now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe a DeLorean would be a cool thing to get too, but...
Yes.
So,
fantasy vehicle
time, man, and there are a lot.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think, okay, so what covers all the bases? What will do everything for me that I need it to, just the ultimate vehicle? And I don't know if this is cheating. You can tell me if it is.
Okay.
My fantasy vehicle to own would be Enterprise NCC 1701D.
That is a fantasy vehicle. I hate to break your heart. It is not real.
Oh, man.
If only it were real.
If only.
If only people knew the geeky stuff that we did to make it seem real. You know what I mean? I mean, I actually, way before there was quality photoshopping, I took a photograph of my friend and I standing and put it into I don't know if I use paint or God knows what, to put it into a picture of 10 forward. So that we were looking out the window, and I was like, okay, we're going to pose, and but we took a photograph and had it developed,
Yeah.
There wasn't even
it wasn't a digital camera. It was just a scanner.
Yeah. I had to scan that thing.
With a big, SCSI cord scanner.
Yeah, and it did not match, but oh gosh, Enterprise.
Come on, It has to be Enterprise D. Don't screw Voyager, screw Sovereign class.
Well, you and I got to actually see in Philly, we mentioned this on that podcast, but
right.
the friggin' saucer that they crashed in Generations.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I don't want that version.
Right.
But like, I'm thinking about it like, okay, so first of all, it has space travel, has warp speed travel. You know, these are all like great things. Like, compared to like, Blue Thunder, Knight Rider, I don't know if I could do that with those. Right. This is definitely a cool vehicle to cruise around in. And even if it didn't come with any of the shuttlecraft, it still has a teleporter.
I love that it might not come with the shuttlecraft.
Well, because I don't know if they're I don't know if they're going to revoke those are additional vehicles, and you only get one fantasy vehicle.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, hopefully there's a crew, but still, I would roam around it if it was empty. We have 10 forward. It's great. We have food replicators. Heck yeah. A holodeck for entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even interested in the missions. I'm interested in walking around. I'm interested in sleeping in it because it makes that calming sound constantly. In fact, I wish that I could just have that played throughout my house on speakers. Just that constant,
that's definitely possible.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Very basic technology could accomplish that.
But by that virtue, see that's why I'm not sure if this is cheating, because it's not so much a vehicle as it is a hotel.
It is. It's a freaking hotel in space.
Its pure purpose isn't just transportation.
No.
And
it had that great design. I mean, okay, granted, it's probably a little dated now, but the carpets and the walls and everything, it was just bright and colorful and nice to look at.
Yeah, you're not going to be depressed living on that.
No, not at all. And later Star Treks got very dark and gray and kind of, dim. And I think J.J. Abrams reversed a lot of that with the whole kind of white, bright technology. But
yeah,
geez, Next Generation would just look like a nice, bright, fun place to walk around.
Yep. Captain Picard even admitted to walking around the ship in his bare feet.
Oh, see, that would be great. Something he's experienced that we never will, which is why it's a fantasy. Yeah.
What about you? Do you is that your fantasy vehicle, or do you have?
Well, obviously, I share a lot of that sentiment with you, but I would just quickly say the spider car from Back to the Future. I always thought was really cool. This is the car. For those that don't know, it's really quickly shown, and I actually had trading cards of Back to the Future, which showed. And this is Back to the Future 2. It showed the car up close, and it had these kind of long arms that came out with wheels on the ends, and that's why it's called the Spider Car. And it was really a refit of a vehicle used in Blade Runner, which is cool. But going back to our car conversation, just there aren't cars like this, and I would just love to just drive one down the road and be like, "Oh, you don't have the Spider Car?" Because there's so many...
Wait, hold on. Let me just have it fly.
Yeah, well, it's like when we talked about the Batmobile on eBay, how I would just love to drive that to work, and just slide out. And it wasn't going for that much money, as I recall. But anyway, yeah, just the design was cool. And at the time, I was just like... And it may be, again, dated... But that's kind of what we're talking about here, nostalgia.
Now, if you could put a flux capacitor into one of those babies and have it travel time, now we're talking. Like
I always, as a kid, imagined things like, an 8-ball on the bottom of a car that would allow you to roll in any direction, and it probably creates, safety nightmares. But I was just like, they got to come up with some cooler ideas for cars.
Like Dominion Tank Police, just
exactly.
With the ball tires, yeah.
Yeah, it turns out people here don't really care, apparently, about that stuff, but... Spider Car, for my money, was always cool.
Yeah, people don't want cool technology as so much as they want safe technology.
Exactly.
That's really depressing.
Real quick, I will say I forgot to mention in the real-world vehicle, I had made a note here, and I just totally didn't mention it, but the SR-71 Blackbird was a real-world vehicle that I lusted after as a kid. I had the Revell model that was really just two pieces that you glued together, Yeah. And that black freaking, amazing looking, sleek design. In terms of jets, you don't see a lot of amazing looking designs, same way that are this futuristic. And there's a story right now online, I think it's through Gizmodo, but you can read about this guy that flew the SR-71 Blackbird, and he's describing how the thing would just sing. Just he's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and he's going Mach whatever is insane. It reminded me of Star Trek when they're like, we shouldn't be going warp 9. We're going to try it, He was doing that because he was flying over Libya.
Nice Catherine Janeway impersonation, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to try it.
Chipotle, Chipotle. But no, yeah, just cranking.
Chakotay, why is my head shrinking?
Yeah. Oh god. He's pushing the engine just as hard as it will go, and it's just like completely soaring through the air and like a dream. And it just sounded amazing. And for a brief moment, I was like, "That's what it was like to fly that thing." I know you got to actually see it in person.
Yeah, in New York they have it. There's an aircraft carrier parked on the shore in New York, and they retire a lot of airplanes, but they'll put them up there if they're like a special design. So there's a whole bunch of cool stuff if you're like a plane enthusiast to look at. And
awesome.
The Blackbird is prominently featured just right there. Like you can see it from the road. And you're just like,
awesome.
That is the king of all bombers.
It is still the king.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Blackbird, you are still the king. So that's going to be our show for this week. If you would like to email us, you may do so. Our email address, you can find that on our website, which is easy to get to. In fact, you might as well just Google Growing Up Geek. We'll come up first. Click on us. And you can either email us there or you can put a comment on the episode, whichever your preference. Or if you want to follow our thoughts throughout the week, you can do that on Twitter at GUGBrad or GUGRob. I think that's going to do it. Once again, my name is Brad.
Chakotay, help me stop Cthulhu.
Nice. If only that happened. During sweeps week, that would happen.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week, folks.